Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Sean Ewing, and it's time to start another series. The last one that we did was on empathy and the three versions of it that exist. The next one is on expressions, and appropriately, I guess it would be empathetic expressions. I tend to build one upon the other, like from the basis, foundational ideas that we've covered, then we can expand. So once you understand the intrinsic nature of empathy and how to use it, then what you get is a choice of how to express that understanding. And these are the expressions. We'll go over 3 different ones over the next month. The first one is surrender. Surrender is actually the base body expression of empathy. In order for one to obtain true empathy, you have to at least surrender the egoic density version of self. Be willing to accept the I as a fluid concept that can traverse other forms of existence, and not just the lazy version, like the one that's right in front of you, the obvious. Most of the existence is a subtle thing. It requires subtle consciousness and subtle surrender, relaxation, non-action. It's the overt things, though, that tend to distract, tend to demand attention. The body can be one of those things until you come to sort of a harmonic convergence with it. And then after that, it becomes a tool for experience. The first surrender is the surrender of the flesh. The surrender of the flesh to death, to impermanence, to change, to growth, to living of its own accord for its own reasons. See, the surrender aspect is not you giving something up, it's you giving you up. You, the identity, the idea that you, in fact, your identity is fused to anything. That's what the surrender is. The subtlety of it is, in that surrender, what you're really surrendering is the idea that you're controlling the outcomes. You're controlling the outcomes of your body, the experiences of it, whether it's going to change or whether it's not. All of those things are ultimately illusionary concepts. Impermanence is the structural foundation. It's built into the very nature of all things. Your body is composed of things. Therefore, it is impermanent. For one to reach the point of being capable of truly seeing themselves in any given moment, and also being potent within that moment, you must first be willing to surrender the idea of self, the idea of control, the idea of density, of flesh, the idea of I. What you surrender it to and how you surrender it ultimately is immaterial. I can tell you that surrendering it to God is the right way to go, or to Allah, or to Buddha, or to Vishnu. I could tell you, if I believed it, that any one of those forms of surrender is going to net you the result that you're looking for. But the result is not what you're looking for. The conscious choice to take the action is what provides the result. Everything else is just colored bubbles. It's clothing that you wear. When you surrender the flesh, you surrender it to death. And in death, there is stillness. And that's where you find peace. Peace for the mind. Peace from the chatter. Peace from the thoughts. Peace from the suffering, the turmoil, the striving, the angst. Those who have surrendered their body no longer strive in this reality. They don't fight for position or money. They don't even fight for survival, because there's no point. You can either choose to struggle your whole life and then surrender when death is enforced upon you, or you can choose to surrender to mortality every second of every day. Live in a state of surrender, and you will find the same peace in your existence that you would only normally find in your non-existence. See, the ability to choose is the responsibility to choose. It's the ability and the necessity to respond by choosing the actions or non-actions that you're going to take, by actively participating in the cycles of your existence, of living and dying, of change, of growth, of expansion. Surrendering to what is ultimately surrendering to yourself as you become aware of it. That's why I say it does not matter what you surrender to, because ultimately there is nothing that is not you. There's no God, no divinity, no deity, no form of consciousness that is not directly an extension of you as an existence, or that you are not a direct extension or condensation of them. We are one. And because of that oneness, there's no delineation. There's no separation. There's only truth. There is only surrender. There is only peace. You have the choice with the mind to either surrender the mind to do what it, allow it to do what it does normally, which is think. That is called contemplation. When you back the thoughts with your own stillness, when you observe them but do not identify with them. Or you can choose to surrender thoughts to stillness. Not that one is the evolution of another, but it provides you with a greater amount of clarity if you're able to surrender to stillness as opposed to thought. Contemplation is a beginner's level meditative tool. Stillness, non-thought, non-identification, non-existence is a master's level. Strive to be both. Work towards them gradually. Be subtle. Be soft. And then what you find is the polarity of surrender. The spiritual concept of surrender. It's surrendering the spirit to either be at its fullest potential in every given moment, which is what we call embodied ascended masters, what you would call a guru, what you might call a savior or a prophet. All of these things are ultimately a density model for a surrendered form of consciousness. A consciousness that has decided to acknowledge not just the base forms of existence, but all forms of its existence simultaneously, and to use each one of those forms to its fullest advantage. There's a flip to that as well, and you've experienced this as well. It's the surrender to the collective consciousness. And that's what we call channels or mediums, or actually angels and other forms of disembodied consciousness that act as a non-point specific focus, that choose no density model, but instead exist as a fluid concept that can move from one form to another, one perspective to another. Each one of them has a benefit. Each one of them carries a unique perspective. However, you have the capacity, as do I, as do all forms of consciousness, to not choose between one or the other, but to choose as one or the other in any given moment. You can choose to be the guru when the guru is needed, to be the savior, the prophet, the ascended master, when that is called for, when it provides the most expansive experience. You can also choose to be the non-existent form of collective consciousness. You can choose to be every particle, and the wind, and the water and the wave, the planet and all of the atmosphere. And you can choose to be space, the nothingness that is aware of all things. Not that one is an evolution of another, but they are intrinsically more difficult as you move into the subtleties. The overt actions are always the easiest. It's easier to become a guru than to abdicate all striving for recognition, for acknowledgement, for change, for growth, for expansion. It is more difficult to be here and to observe than it is to be here and to interact. This is why the form of God that truly exists is an allowance of all versions of existence. Because once you've reached that form of existence, you realize that every expression of self is righteous in it of itself. It is the ultimate form of love, the ultimate form of allowance, of acceptance, of surrender, to allow things to be of their own merit, of their own free will, without insinuating your opinion, your ideas onto them. This brings us to a totality. I've said before that it is in my intrinsic nature to be oriented towards the path of self. The path of self is actually an experiential path that we set out in order to allow for density models to be taken to their utmost. The path of others is also a density model, but it's a subtle one. The self is an overt. If you learn to master and you choose to identify with that, it's by moving further into overt, dense action. If you try to master or harmonize with the path of others, then it's subtle, passive action. The two each provide unique perspectives, but those perspectives are only meant to be fused back into the one true perspective of nothingness. If you are to strive to be that which allows all things to be of their own accord, that does not necessarily seek to love by the polarity definition of opening one's heart, being all loving, all accepting, all inclusive, passive, non-violent, and seek to define love on your own terms as you exist. Seek to embrace all forms of your existence, to include that which is aggressive, which is violent, which is dense. All forms of existence are righteous. All forms of your existence are righteous. Surrender to the reality of all existence as it unfolds to you. And then allow that reality to blossom of its own accord. Court it to arise. Surrender your control of it. Don't say arise this way, in this form, for this reason. Say simply arise, and you will be loved. You will be embraced. And you will find that the subtlety of reality is immensely powerful. 99.9% of all matter, all material, is empty space. It exists at a subtle vibrational frequency. People are striving to control and dominate, exert power over 0.01%. I'm telling you these things because they align you with the most potent form of existence. Surrender is more potent than control. Find one, and then you will be the most powerful version of you and me. Bye.